grassroots, so inclusive, democratic, good-humored. I mean, you know, it could not have done better. And to have the president once again demonstrate how out of step he is, how out of sync he is with his people, how far behind he is, and really how little he respects the Egyptian people. To be talking at this point about not succumbing to foreign pressure when there have been millions of Egyptians on the street calling for him to go is just disingenuous.
But do you think though that his call for outsiders to stay out and is, as it were, his kind of his attitude towards the international community will play well with some Egyptians, that this is something for Egypt to sort out, not for America or the wider world?
Well, this is what he is trying to do. And again, this is a card that he is constantly playing and that this regime has played for 30 years, which is the division card. This is a regime that is trying to set people against each other, Muslim against Christian, rich against poor. They even at the beginning of these protests said that the protests were okay as long as they were kind of middle class, and that if people from the slums joined them, then that was the difficulty. So this divisiveness, and I think that this is a very, very important thing, that this is a president and a regime that is willing to push the country further and further into crisis, willing to risk the shift of the mood of the people from, you know, peaceable, insisting on peace and on non-violence, to push them towards confrontation, willing to push the army into confrontation with the presidential guard, perhaps. This is like a slash and burn policy. This is not like the president of a country who cares for his country.
Thank you both very much. Now, Jim Zogby here, let's look at this international dimension. Now, I mean, from your point of view, I mean, you're a big supporter of President Obama. How did he play this?
I think badly. He's done rather exceptionally in being able to alienate both sides of the equation. The regime thinks he threw them under the bus, and the people in the square feel they've been thrown under the bus. They've meandered. They've started with one message, moved to another message, gone to another message, and frankly, no one quite knows where they are on this. And I think it's unfortunate, because the best position for America to have taken from the beginning was what they said right off. We want the right of peaceful demonstration. We ask everyone to resist violence, and this is a matter for the Egyptian people to solve for themselves. Leave it alone. Keep your head down.
But this has just served to show, has it not, how little influence America has?
Well, we have no influence in this situation other than the ability to get ourselves in trouble. The fact is that the people in Tahrir Square were not looking for America to sprinkle holy water on their revolution. In fact, you know, I've said it this way. I've said America is not in trouble because it supported President Mubarak. President Mubarak is in trouble because he supported America on way too many policies that have been wildly unpopular with his people. At this point, best position for America is keep your head down, be quiet, and let the Egyptian people work this out.
Because for a very long time they were willing to support tacitly.
Yeah, and at
Mubarak,
the end of the day,
even though Condoleezza Rice said, we just can't have stability instead of democracy anymore.
Yeah, but the point is the Bush administration said that stuff, but then pursued policies and coerced regimes to support those policies. They wanted Egyptian support for the Iraq War. They wanted it for the Israeli attack on Gaza. They wanted Egyptian silence when we attacked Lebanon, when Israel attacked Lebanon and we supported it. They wanted all of that. At the same time, they said, we want you to be democratic. It's as hypocritical as Eliana Ross-Layton in saying now in the House, we want a full democracy in Egypt, but everyone who runs for office should take a pledge that they will support the Jewish state of Israel. I mean, how bizarre is that?
Coming back to Cairo, Gigi Ibrahim, how do you think America has played this?
I mean, seriously, it at this point it has been really hypocritical. Backing one dictatorship, then backing the people, saying we're for the peaceful, democratic transition, when in fact this is all irrelevant to the Egyptian people. We're talking about the Egyptian people calling on their government to resign. So the feel on the street that the American government should just stay out of it, and it has supported Mubarak for 30 years, and now the people don't want Mubarak anymore. They want a new regime where the people can choose fairly and democratically.
You were on the program last night. You never thought you'd perhaps be on the program tonight with the news that you've had this evening. Do you think, both of you, first of all, Gigi, that Hosni Mubarak will still be in some sort of power in September, realistically?
I mean, Mubarak is done. It's time for him to resign. The message cannot be any clearer. He doesn't own this country. I don't understand his understanding of the state and of the power of the people and legitimacy through the people. It's already apparent that millions have demonstrated they don't want Mubarak, they want a new regime, they want free and fair elections, and putting a hold on that until September will only aggravate the situation more and will make people even more persistent that they might stay in Tahrir until September, really.
A move tomorrow on the parliament, I mean, the danger is that it will become violent.
The move is not on Parliament. We already took the Parliament Street a couple of days ago, and they've been completely peaceable and courteous and civilized. The move that people are talking about is on the presidential palace. And of course, the hope is, and I do believe, that it will continue to be peaceable and civilized. The question is, what will it be met with? Are people going to be allowed to march peaceably on the symbol of presidential power or not?
Thank you both very much indeed for joining us tonight. Thank you, James Zobi, and we'll speak to you later, Mark. And now tomorrow morning's front pages, and mostly they lead with Mubarak clinging on, says The Times. Moving on to The Guardian, Egypt's hope turns to fury as Mubarak clings to power. Massive protests expected today, Friday, after President hands over some powers but remains in office. The Financial Times, Mubarak defies calls to resign. And The Independent, as Mubarak clings on, what now for Egypt? And finally in The Telegraph, dashed hopes in a day of rising expectation of a people's victory, Mubarak refuses to step aside. And we're joined again by our diplomatic editor, Mark Urban. What are you hearing tonight from Cairo?
Well, as we heard earlier in the programme, I think the big question tomorrow, with all the numbers coming onto the streets, Friday, of course, a day of prayer and congregation of people, will be, do they move on the presidential palace? Perhaps the army itself may stop people trying to do so by non-violent means in order to frustrate any possible clash with the presidential guard around the palace itself. All of these questions are really unknown at the moment. The army, I think, has been sitting on the fence. We also get a sense that people want them finally to commit themselves. They've desperately wanted to avoid the situation, either where they would have to fire on their own people or they would have to physically eject President Mubarak from power, but they may be getting closer to the point where they have to make a decision.
But it seems interesting that one assumes the army has more power than it actually has, because earlier today the signs were that they were expecting and hoping that Mubarak would go.
Well, they've played this both ways all the way through. I mean, we heard after President Mubarak's second televised address last week that they said that people should go home. So occasionally they have come out with statements that aren't necessarily in the interests of the protesters. They've tried to walk a middle way. You've got a diffuse system of security there, Interior Ministry forces, hundreds of thousands of them, who've disappeared. We don't know what role they're going to play. The Mukhabarat, Omar Suleiman's former organisation. So all these organisations appear to be fragmenting.
We're just getting a news in BBC copy from Washington. The Egyptian embassy is saying that Suleiman is the man in power now. So whatever way that goes, it might mean that actually Mubarak is a step further back than we thought.
Well, he is clearly the choice of the elite, the old guard in Cairo, and that's been obvious for a couple of weeks, really. The question is, what will the people on the streets do in response to this latest announcement?
Mark, thank you very much. Well, that is all from Newsnight tonight. We'll leave you with more live pictures from Cairo. From all of us here, have a very good night.